All right, good late morning, everyone. It's a committee of conference hearing on S.23. We did about an hour of committee work yesterday and worked with council for a period of time, discussing some language changes and other possible avenues as we work through the points of contention. And any comment from the committee right now, or do we just want to move over to council?
No, I think that'd be great if we could have Rick join us. And I think based on what I'm remembering, we adopted the New Hampshire version of 2032 with respect to the disclosure.
Yes.
And the remaining issue was the definition of political candidate or individual, but maybe there's a little bit of potential avenue there as well.
We agreed on everything else though, didn't we, Mr. Chair?
Yes, we agreed to go into that portion where we requested council kind of riff it off of that New Hampshire language. We all found that to be amenable and agreeable. And then the outstanding issue is the political candidate versus individuals. Yes. That is the hanging order of business. And Senator Vahovsky is still working via Zoom today and is currently virtually in House Judiciary, and will try to join us as soon as possible for that portion of the
Or
discussion.
Senate Judiciary.
Yeah,
Or Senate.
unless it's maybe joining, I don't know.
Did I say House?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, whoopsie. Sorry. That was a reflex. Senate Judiciary. Thank you for the catch, Madam Vice Chair. You orient my details. I appreciate it. Council, how are you, sir?
I'm well. Good morning.
Morning.
Rick Sagal, Office of Legislative Counsel. I do have some language to show you all to see what you think. And maybe we can start with the agreement, the disclaimer, actual text of the disclaimer. Share my screen here. I sent a request to share my screen. So what you're going to see is we have structured this. It's a strike all. And the reason I did a strike all is if you do decide to adopt this report, it'll be an up or down vote in each chamber. And I recall this bill several times, members on the floor have said, I don't see the rest of the bill. I don't know what I'm voting on. So in my legal opinion and in my empathy for you all, I think it would help your members if you had the entire bill when you're voting up or down, because you can't amend it after the report is either, well, if you decide to adopt the report, however you adopt it, it's an up or down vote. You request a new conference committee if you want to do that, but just kind of giving you my thinking as to how to structure this. With that said, I have a strike all. Sure, I have the right document here to show you. So the language in yellow is the new disclaimer language. Nothing else here has changed from the as passed by or as proposed by the Senate version, which I'll show you in a second here. So the suggested language, there's one thing different, and I'm going to explain why it's different.
Can I interrupt for just a second? Is there a way for us to see this electronically?
So I can email Nick a copy. I hadn't yet emailed it to him because I hadn't yet shared the language with any committee member yet, so I wanted to make sure. But should I do that right now before I continue?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
That would be.
Let me stop sharing real quick.
Thank you.
Of course,
I kind of like to scroll back and forth and.
understood. Making with this as a PDF.
Yes, please.
Should be there momentarily.
Thank you, Rick.
Shall I continue or should I wait till you get the?
It might be helpful if you waited.
I can-
Sorry.
Oh, I can wait. I can whistle. I can't carry it soon.
Sing and dance now.
No, neither of those two. I can whistle. It's the extent of it.
It's very clear that you're stopping at the whistle.
Oh, senators, you don't have electronic devices, so you don't need it sent to you, right?
Mm-mm.
It's just us.
They're old school.
Just top of the table for the House, Nick, please. It's one thing I don't think I could get used to is all paper. Great, we have it.
Okay,
Thanks, Rick.
yeah, of
Thank
course.
you, Nick.
I will reshare. Okay, so now it's draft 1.1 of the report of the committee of conference. So again, skipping down ahead to the area of agreement and highlighted language is the disclaimer that has been updated from the proposal from the Senate. This media has been manipulated or generated by digital technology and depicts speech or conduct that did not occur. So yesterday, I showed you the New Hampshire language, which was almost exactly this exact disclaimer. However, the New Hampshire language uses the phrase by artificial intelligence technology, not digital technology. And I started thinking about that. And if you go up to our definition of synthetic media, this bill uses digital technology, including AI. So if a person makes this deceptive ad that they have to put a disclaimer on, it's possible that they did not use AI. They used Photoshop, they used some other editing software that's not AI. It is still deceptive, it is still synthetic media, but it's not AI. So I changed artificial intelligence technology to digital technology. And I'll show you, actually it's already here. In your definition of synthetic media, you have that phrase, which includes artificial intelligence. It's up to you all. You can keep this the way New Hampshire did it. I think it's not always correct that someone did not, if you have to say artificial intelligence technology, I feel like that's not always going to be a correct disclaimer. That the person may not have used AI. They may have used some other software. So I know you all agree to it, and I feel bad proposing a different word or phrase, but I think it's actually more accurate on how the bill is currently structured.
Rep. Waterstones.
Well, you just answered half of my question, which is, does this make it more accurate and more honed in on what we were trying to accomplish? So I think the answer to that is yes. And then second is, does it make it more consistent with the rest of the bill and the descriptors that we use in the
Well, it's interesting. The bill does not really speak a whole lot about AI, even though
Yeah.
you are regulating in some ways AI. I can't say this for sure. I don't know how often it's used besides right there in the definition of synthetic media. That might be the only time it's used.
Okay.
I'll have to double check that. But in my opinion, because you're defining synthetic media as digital technology, which includes AI, I think the disclaimer should match the definition that is being used here. That's my opinion.
Thank you. I'm supportive of this. I think it makes sense.
I'm nodding as well. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. We got.
So are you
five.
suggesting we add the, whatever the proper pattern of speech is, including artificial intelligence in that yellow highlighted area?
You could. It makes the disclaimer longer, and you got to think about you're already. That's a fairly long disclaimer that someone either
Okay.
has to say during a radio ad or a phone call,
Okay,
put on an image, put on a video. So you could, but because you define digital technology,
already done.
just AI.
Okay,
I
okay.
think you're safe.
All right.
But
Yep.
You just said, Rick, that we defined digital technology. We actually defined synthetic media. So in the yellow highlight, should it not say this media has been manipulated or generated by synthetic media?
no, so
No.
synthetic media is the media that's been altered by digital.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. So I'm good with this then.
Okay.
I think we're all
Yeah.
in agreement.
And then just kind of finishing up 2032, keeping the Senate inclusionary language. I didn't highlight in yellow because it's not different, but the inclusive to the greatest extent possible of individuals with disabilities, that is still there.
Mhm.
That has not been removed from the strike all.
Mhm.
So it's my understanding, the only area of discussion is the definition of deceptive and fraudulent synthetic media and of synthetic, really, just of deceptive and fraudulent synthetic media. So I have a proposal and curious to hear what you think about it. The discussion has been, is it a ad of a political candidate that is, being depicted, or is an individual? The Senate version opened it up to be an individual. The House version had it be a political candidate. So the way I've structured this is kind of splitting it in the middle, kind of. So here, let me read you what it says. The intro language is the same. Deceptive and fraudulent synthetic media means synthetic media that appears to a reasonable person to be a realistic representation of a political candidate that injures the reputation of a political candidate. So in this case, it has to be somebody running for office that is being depicted, and that depiction harms the reputation of that political candidate. So it is a depiction of Chair Byron that has him saying or doing something that hurts his reputation, whatever that may be, right? If it's a depiction of me that injures his reputation, that would not be covered by this because I'm not a political candidate, right?
Mhm.
Okay. That was in the House version originally. But then you say or, so it could be either or of these as deceptive media. An individual, so let me go back to the intro. Let me see if I can close this here. There we go. Much better. So means synthetic media that appears to a reasonable person to be a realistic representation of an individual. I'm on subdivision B, that attempts to unduly influence the outcome of an election, including a public question, by providing materially false information to voters. That language is the same, except at this point, you're opening up that type of ad to be anybody that will provide false information about the election, the time, the election, the day of the election, where to vote, these types of really critical, substantive things that somebody would be deceptive about. It could be anybody. Bernie Sanders, me, Schwarzenegger, my favorite example. So that is a proposed way to do this.
Waters Evans.
Okay, so this is what I've been thinking about. So we have this phrase unduly influenced, right? And that is significantly it's more serious than just saying, don't vote for Shay, she's the worst, right? It's like actually trying to significantly affect the outcome. So, well, I guess a question for Rick. So did the word individual and the phrase unduly influenced, were they in the previous, I have it right in front of me.
Yeah.
Were they together? Okay, they were. All right. Okay, so I'm still a little stuck on it because I guess what I'm wondering is it's the word individual that's tripping me up a little bit. So I was wondering, is there another term that could be used like interested party or involved party? So it's like a step above candidate, because A seems fine to me, a political candidate that injures the reputation of a political candidate. But I was trying to find a halfway point, maybe between political candidate and any individual. And I was just I don't know legally if there are any words that fall in between there that have an actual definition, but I was hoping that there was some language or a word that wouldn't broaden it so much that it just can be like any old person. But that indicates that they somehow have the influence or the ability to unduly influence the outcome of an election.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's to like Taylor Swift, like Bernie Sanders, the people that we all know and
Sure.
maybe trust in some different way. But that really depends on the person, you know, like if
Yeah.
it's a depiction of your mom or your dad, it doesn't matter to really many people except you.
Right.
But if you were to see that ad, I'm just giving a really probably bad example, but I think my answer is yes, you can word this however you want, but is there some legally significant word that that bridges that gap? I don't know. Except celebrity, some kind of, person that everyone knows, or that's a tough one.
Yes, Senator Morley.
How much judicial risk do we bring to this bill if enacted law, changing it from political candidate to individual?
So in part B or part A or in both?
Both.
So the Senate version, in other words, the Senate proposal was individual. I spoke in your committee about, I'm not a judge, but
It's California, wasn't it?
it was a California case. Again, many states have passed a similar law like this that does not limit it to political candidates. Some of them have individuals, some of them have political candidates. It's not really, some of them ban it. So when I say that you're in a kind of trepidatious environment, it's because you have these First Amendment principles that you have to be mindful of, and that is the freedom of speech. So whenever you regulate speech that is, more restrictive, then that gets more scrutiny. So when you mandate any individual in the world being depicted, yeah, that's more restrictive than just a political candidate who is running for office and literally has a stake in the game, right? Compared to any person in the world. So, yeah, I wish I could have a crystal ball and tell you what the court would say, but.
Rep. Ango.
So I think what Rep. Waters Evans was getting at, and correct me if I'm wrong, finding a happy medium between any old individual that people may or may not listen to, even if they're saying something false, and the specificity of a political candidate. And what first came to my mind, and this may be the wrong descriptive, is a prominent individual, which is someone well-known, influential, easily noticeable in a specific field, or holding a position of authority or making significant impact. So is there something like that we could use to qualify individual in letter B?
So you can always define what that is. Prominent would be maybe a word, but yeah, like you said, you probably want to includes. But who is prominent to a 13-year-old is not going to be prominent to a 70-year-old. Probably.
Extremely subjective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was I right that that's where you were going with that?
That is the direction in
Yeah,
which I was hoping we
so-
could head, but it seems like there might not be I don't know what the word.
I don't know what other descriptive word would fit in there, but I know where you're going with that, and I
noodled on this very concept myself, like extensively, like away from the group. And it was like where I kept, and I apologize for blurting out there. But it was the subjectivity of what is deemed to be like an influential character or a celebrity status, right? And I think that's what council was just speaking to. It's like there's not a lot of uniformity to that. Yes, right.
So the other thing that came to mind is a public facing individual, like a public figure, but really any individual can be on an ad saying the election is November 2nd, when really the election is November 6th. And people would listen to that. Oh yeah, I heard on the radio, the election is November 2nd. I better go vote. So I'm seeing the value in keeping it in an individual. And I think we have to remember that it's not just any old person doing any old thing. It's any old person falsely providing information that would unduly influence the outcome of an election. It's just not anybody doing anything, right?
Right.
So
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
Yes, right.
I understand that we don't want people doing this, and I understand that we would like to stop everybody from doing this. And this is like the back and forth, right? This is what we had in this room before it left here, and what you had in your room before it came back here, and before we all gathered together is we're trying to find that point because it's not anything that really exists in statute yet, right? And so my hesitation comes from, first of all, this is all new. So I think the more specific we get with like our first foray into these kinds of laws, what it's going to do, I think I think everybody is intended, if I speak for all of us on all the, both committees even, is to say we're trying to protect the integrity of elections and we're trying to protect the voters from being given false information. It's not so much about protecting the candidate, it's about protecting the integrity of the election system and voting. I am just really still hung up, and I know that you all know this, but I'm going to say it again. I'm really hung up on the free speech thing, and any change to the language here, like using the word individual, that opens it up to, scrutiny. And then I think if we already know going into this that the chances of it being more solid, and I know we don't have a crystal ball, we can't predict what the court is going to decide, and maybe nothing will ever come of it. But just as far as like time and money and the efforts of like the attorney general or whoever else would then have to go to defend this if it came to a court case, which they would have to do, I feel like if we have an avenue to make this happen at the moment that seems clearer and safe, I would rather stick with political candidate and not invite all this further scrutiny and like possible court decisions and stuff. Especially in a zone that we haven't been in yet legally, I feel like the more conservative we are in this case, the better. The free speech thing is really, I don't know, it's bothering me in that way. And I know that it's not ideal, but I'd rather be more on the side of conservative than opening it up.
So my question for council is having this as an A, B, and either or, if it were to be litigated, it would probably be litigated from potentially two different angles, right? You would have one would be impacting a political candidate with how it's laid out, right?
Or public.
So it wouldn't fall into this. What are the odds on both of those definitions being litigated at the same time?
Well, you would have someone's ad that they made that they didn't put a disclaimer on, be challenged by the AG through an enforcement mechanism, and that person would sue saying that, or countersue saying that their ad didn't meet A or B. The odds that, as currently written, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Here. So of course, an individual can be a political candidate. So you could have an ad that not only injures the reputation of a political candidate, but also attempts to unduly influence the outcome of the election. So an ad depicting, I'll pick on Chair Collmore this time, an ad depicting Chair Collmore saying the election is on Wednesday, not Tuesday, would violate A and B. But it would be challenged on not just A or B specifically, it'd be like the entire law is unconstitutional, right? And then the court would have to say, well, A might meet strict scrutiny, but B does not because it's too broad, that kind of thing. Does that answer your question or did I overcomplicate it?
No. I actually, I think that answered the question.
Well, a court could also sever subdivision B. Because every Vermont law, unless otherwise indicated, is severable. So a court could say, B is unconstitutional, too broad, too restrictive of speech, and keep A.
I think that was your question.
It at its
Okay.
core, yeah.
I eventually got to it, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. No, it was a good lead in though. Yeah, and that was sort of the like crux of it, right? Like doing like the either or. Yeah, I'll stop there. You answered my question. Wrapping up.
I guess my question goes back to free speech. Are people really allowed to lie about anything and everything?
Sure.
And it's okay?
Well, to an extent, you have the right to lie, but
No.
then there's defamation, which I may use this. I thought of something that you may be there. So there's this idea in defamation that a person in the public light, it's harder to defame that person because they're a celebrity than it is to defame a private citizen. If that makes sense. So in some ways, if you were to publish a article that defamed Taylor Swift, it would be more difficult for her to prove that because she's a well-known celebrity than it would be to defame me, a private citizen. I'm not a singer, songwriter. I'm not out there. You were talking about the difference between public and private. So there is in defamation, there is this distinction. I would have to think about how that is actually legally determined, but it's harder to defame a well-known person than it is a private citizen who keeps their stuff private, if that makes sense.
Except for in letter B, we're not really talking about defaming a person.
Right.
We are talking about unduly influencing a public question or a different outcome of an election. So we're talking about an inanimate thing that could be altered. And anybody could go ahead and do that, alter the
Right.
question or alter the outcome of the election. So based on that, it's not really about the person doing the altering, it's what they're altering, what they're influencing rather. So I'm okay with letter B, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest a third route, but it may not be. If we stuck with just A, but we included a public question somehow, but that probably muddies the water to some degree. Because a political candidate would have to provide misleading information about a ballot issue in South Burlington, putting up a new gymnasium or something. I mean,
Well, that was the as passed by the House. The as passed by the House limited it to a political candidate, either, their reputation being harmed or that depiction misleading the public when it came to an election.
but to me, an election seems to refer back to the election in which the political candidate is a candidate.
Not necessarily,
No?
not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
Because an
I'm
election could be
with you.
on anything,
Yep.
right?
Right.
Any issue.
We don't define election. We don't define political candidate. So it can be, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to ask for 5 minutes to confer with my Senate colleague and I think we'll come back with an answer.
Okay, we will take a recess for 5 minutes.